Today's shiur begins 9 lines from the top of Daf Lamed Ches. Before we begin the actual Gamora, we glance at the side where we have a noseh, a topic heading, which reads, Loi nitna Torah elo leMoshe ulezaro. Very, very surprising statement that the Gemara will have to explain. And that is that the Torah was given only to Moshe Rabino and his descendants. Can that truly be? Now the Gamora. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, Lo nitna Torah elo leMoshe ulezaro. The Torah was given exclusively to Moshe Rabbeinu and his descendants. Shenemar, Ksav lecha, Psol lecha, write for yourself, or etch out the tablets for yourself. Ma psolton shelcha, as we saw in our previous shiur, at the end of our previous shiur, where we discovered that just like the etchings, the chipping, the chips from the carving of the 10 Commandments tablets was to be Moshe's possession, Moshe owned, af ksavan shelcha, so too the writing of the Torah, the content of the Torah is yours, is Moshe Rabbeinu's. U'Moshe noag bo toivasayin v'nosna liYisrael. Moshe, out of the goodness of his heart, toivasayin, literally the good eye, magnanimity of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he gave it to the rest of Israel. The Alavakos of Omer, regarding Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk in Mishlei says, Toivayin hu yivorach, kinosan milachmo ladal. The one of a good, kind eye is to be blessed, for he has given of his bread to the poor. At this point, you notice a series marking one of our geometric forms, in this case a volcano shape. On the side under the Mivneh heading we have written Sidra Shel Kushos, a series of questions, all from Psukim, Al Ha-Dinemar, regarding that which was said, Lo nitna Torah lo Moshe lazaro, that the Torah was given only to Moshe and his descendants. Now the Gemara. Mosiv Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda raises an objection from the pasuk, V'oisi tzivo Hashem v'oisahi l'lamed eschem. Translated would be, and Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking, it says, and the Almighty commanded me at that time to teach you. So that the teaching of the Torah to the rest of the Jewish people isn't a function of the goodwill of Moshe Rabbeinu. That was God's command. The Gemara answers how that pasuk should be read is as follows: The oisi tziva, I was commanded by Hashem. In other words, the Torah was given to me. Va'ani lochem, and it was me, Moshe Rabbeinu, I decided to pass it on to the rest of the Jewish people. Question: Re'ei limadati eschem chukim u'mishpatim kasher tzivani Hashem Elokai. Behold, I taught you the laws of the Torah as the Almighty commanded. So again, the dissemination of Torah unto the Jewish people wasn't a function of the toiv ayin of Moshe Rabbeinu, but rather that was a direct heavenly command. The Gemara says no. The reading of this pasuk is as follows: Osi tziva, in other words, I was commanded the Torah, v'ani lochem, and I gave it on my own volition to the rest of you. Question: the pasuk says, "Ve'ato kisfu lochem es hashira hazois," and now you shall write for yourselves this song. And in raising this question, we're assuming that the song is a reference to the Torah, so that the Torah was to be given over to the Jewish people by divine command. The Gemara answers, Hashira lechuda. The Shira, the song, which is a reference to Parshas Hazinu, toward the end of Sefer Devarim, the Parsha, the second to last Parsha of the Torah, Parshas Hazinu, is in effect a Shira. Shira, roughly translated, I hesitate using the word song, but we'll leave it at that for right now, because the term Shira also conveys a special way in which those particular psukim are written in the Torah, beyond their, we'll say, their poetic, the poetic license that you find in those psukim. Nevertheless, the Gemara's response at this point is, when there was a command to write for the Jewish people to write the Shira, it's only the Shira, only that part of the Torah. Question: Leman tieh li hashira hazois li'id b'vnei Yisrael. The Shira represents a witness to the, we'll say, the divine connection between the Almighty and the Jewish people. Now, the Meforshim, and we'll look at the Meforshim together on the second wide line of the Rosh. Leman tieh li hashira zos li'ed v'im lo nitan lahem haTorah elo zu hashira alma he'id. If all that was given to the Jewish people was that particular section, that song, so what does it bear witness to? Also, we look in the Rashi. Leman tieh li hashira zos le'ed v'i shira levado komar. If all that was referred to is the Shira, that portion of the Torah, not the rest of the Torah. My sahadusaika, what witnessing does it bear in creating this, we'll say, testimony to the connection of the Almighty with the Jewish people? How is it a testimony? Actually, I mistakenly said that we were reading from the Rashi. We just read from the Ran commentary. The Rashi commentary is on the first narrow line above. Leman tieh li la'ed sheyilmedu kol haTorah v'yalamdu oisa almul Yisrael nami nitna. This is a witness that the entire Jewish people shall learn the Torah. So we see that the entire Torah was given to the entire Jewish people, not just the Shira. So what was the reference made at the beginning by Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina that the Torah was given only to Moshe Rabino? We see that the Torah, the entire corpus of the Torah, was given to the entire Jewish people. The Gemara answers, Elo pilpula bi'alma. Again, we look at the Meforshim. We look at Rashi on the third narrow line, pilpula bi'alma, lahavin davar mitoch davar. Hu denitan leMoshe. The ability to derive information from other information, to derive something from something, that ability or that wisdom was given to Moshe. V'nihag bo toivas ayim v'nosno liYisrael. In other words, you have we'll call it the basic, explicit aspect of the Torah, that was given to all of the Jewish people. The tools, the wisdom to derive subsequent information from the pre-existing information, that's called pilpula bi'alma. That was given exclusively to Moshe Rabbeinu, but he passed that on through his magnanimity, through his good eye, to the rest of the Jewish people. We look at the Rosh commentary, the third wide line, pilpula bi'alma, havona v'charifus, understanding and sharpness. V'hainu ksavon shelcha. We said ksav lecha before, ksavon shelcha. What is the connection between depth of understanding and the writing? Ki kol achochma v'asechel remuzim b'ksav haTorah b'tzuras ha'osios. This is fascinating, and the shapes of the letters contain within them hints to deeper understanding of the Torah. So that wisdom, the chokhmah and the seichel that are hinted to in the words, in the letters, in the writing of the Torah, this is something that was given exclusively to Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll call it the secret behind the letters, and Moshe Rabbeinu passed that on to the rest of the Jewish people. And that's reflected by the drosh above, Ksav L'cha, the writing is given to you. In other words, the secrets in deciphering deeper meanings through shapes of letters, that was given exclusively to Moshe Rabino, and he passed that and shared that with the rest. As you can see, we have a slash mark in our Gemara, in our marked Gemaras, and that indicates that a new trend of thought follows. You'll see a triangle appearing, and on the side of under the Mivneh heading, Sidro Shel Meimer Rabbi Yochanan Hakshurus L'Nevuah V'Torah. We're going to see a series of Rabbi Yochanan teachings that are related to prophecy and Torah. Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mashre Shchinasoi. Notice, first of all, that we have a long point, and this long point will be followed by another long point. So here, Rabbi Yochanan tells us, who or upon whom does the Almighty enable the divine presence to be a regular, a fixed phenomenon? Upon whom does he allow his divine presence to dwell on a regular basis? So Rabbi Yochanan says that the Kodesh Baruch Hu does not mashre shchinosoi elo al gibor v'oshir chacham v'onav. 4 characteristics. Gibor is a person of strength, a warrior, an Oshir, a man of wealth, Chacham, a man of wisdom, and Onav, a man of humility, of humbleness. And all of these characteristics are learned from Moshe Rabino. Moshe Rabino certainly being the example par excellence of someone that had an ongoing bond with the divine presence. And you can see by just scanning ahead through our markings, keywords are squiggle underlined and numbered. You'll see 1 through 4. Gibor dichtiv. That Moshe Rabbeinu was a man of strength. Vayifrois es ha'oil ala mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu covered with the cloth and skin coverings the Mishkan. The Mishkan was the portable tabernacle that accompanied the Jews through their sojourn in the desert. We'll say the precursor of the Beis HaMikdash, and it was a portable entity, as is described in great detail by the Torah in Parshas Truma, and described further descriptions in Parshas Vayakel. It had a cloth covering. You'll see some of the dimensions of the Mishkan, and in order to cover this walled structure with the material covering, you'll see that you have to be a large man. The Omar Mor, Moshe Rabbeinu Pirso. Moshe Rabbeinu himself covered the Mishkan. Uksiv Eser Amos Oire Hakeresh. The upright boards that constituted the walls of the Mishkan measured 10 amos in height. 10 amos, you can imagine, approximately 5 meters tall. 5 meters is like 1.5 stories high. And Moshe Rabbeinu took the cloth coverings and covered it. What does that indicate? That he had to have been a very tall individual. The Gemara asks, Amos de orich the cotton. Okay, he might have been very tall, but also very slender. And that physical description would not fall under the category of Gibor. Rashi, the Ran says, Oroch b'koimos, a very tall, v'kotten b'koyach, and as far as strength is concerned, so he was able to pick up the cloth materials, but that doesn't indicate true strength. Height, yes, but not strength. So where's the Gibor aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu? Elo min hodein kra dichtiv. And notice we have a little base. This is the second attempt to show that Moshe Rabbeinu was in fact a Gibor. The pasuk says, "V'espois b'shnei aluchos v'ashlichei al shtei yodai v'ashabreim." This pasuk describes Moshe Rabbeinu smashing the tablets, the 10 Commandments that were in tablet form, in stone form. Vitanya, now with a little more information regarding the dimensions of these stone tablets, you'll appreciate that he had to have been of phenomenal strength. It says, Haluchos orkon shisha v'rochvon shisha v'ovyon shloisha. The luchos measured 6 tfachim in length, 6 tfachim in width. 6 tfachim is an amma, and an amma is basically half a meter. So a 6 by 6 with a thickness of 3 tfachim. So it's not quite cubed shaped, but it's pretty close to that. So stone measuring 6 by 6 by 3, and then smashing it, that would require a great amount of strength. So Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gibor. Ashir, he was wealthy. Psol lecha, as we saw in the drasha above, at the very end of our previous shiur. We have a little arrow, by the way, to the side of the Gamora text, the left-hand side. You can see where we saw this earlier. And from psol lecha, which meant to carve out or etch out the second commandments, the second tablets, psolton shelcha yehei. The pasuk by saying lecha unto you means that the chips of this we'll call gem quality material that constituted the second tablets, Moshe Rabbeinu kept that for himself, so he became rich from that. Chacham, man of wisdom. Rav Shmuel d'Amitravayu, both Rav and Shmuel say Chamishim Sharei Bina Nivru Ba'olam. There are 50 levels or 50 gates of wisdom that were created, that exist in the world. V'kulam nitnu l'Moshe choser achas. 49 of the 50, all minus 1, were given to Moshe Rabbeinu. So all minus 1, choser achas. Shenemar v'tachsereu ma'at melekim, that he was created just a bit less than Elokim. What we just did is we offered a literal translation to this pasuk. Personally, yours truly has a great difficulty presenting these ideas. The description of man, no matter how great the man is, the greatest of the great men, Moshe Rabbeinu, is nevertheless there's a finite element. The Almighty is infinite. So you can't put the two together. You can't speak about man and the Almighty in comparative terms. But we have psukim, as the Gemara says elsewhere, if not for the fact that the Torah writes it, we wouldn't be able to say it. So, but we're translating here, and the Ran offers an essential explanation of the term choser achas. Moshe Rabbeinu was missing one. What does that mean, the missing one? So the Ran says, choser achas yedias Hashem yisbarach ala mitosoi k'dichtiva et chsrei ma'at melekim. And but this is everything. The jump from 49 to 50 is what I was saying before is the infinite. You're going from the 49 levels of wisdom that are relevant to mankind, and then that 50th is what I would term the jump to the infinite. And the Ran is saying that's the ability to perceive the Almighty in the absolute truthful form that man is incapable of achieving. That's, as we said before, that's the realm of the infinite. But that aside, Moshe Rabbeinu had reached everything that a man could possibly reach. So he is certainly worthy of the description as a chacham, a man of wisdom. Number 4, Onov, Dichtiv, Va'ish Moshe Onov Mo. The pasuk says explicitly that Moshe Rabino was extremely humble. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, again, as we said before, another long point. Kol Hanavim Ashirim Hayu. All the prophets were men of wealth. If I may just offer a side comment, the significance of wealth is such that first and foremost, it's not a Jewish ideal to build one's life in pursuit of wealth. It's not a traditional Jewish goal. It is something. Wealth is something that the Almighty may bless certain people with it, and it's a very great test. What are you going to do with your wealth? How are you going to lead your life with wealth? But there is an aspect of wealth that has very great significance. You see that over here, and you see that in other contexts, and that a man of wealth is less subject to, let's say, external pressures. And when it comes to being, let's say, obligated to speak the truth, to chastise, it's quite beneficial for such an individual of authority, not to be liable to bribes and pressures, all resulting from issues of wealth, or lack thereof. So it seems to me that a Novi, a prophet, whose main role was to communicate the will of the Kodesh Baruch Hu vis-a-vis the Jewish people, should be able to speak independently, meaning independent of other forces, and speak the truth. We find records of Nevi'im that were, in fact, that were subject to pressures, especially coming from the royal family, and in a number of cases they were life-threatening pressures. So that the issue of being able to avoid pressure, at least from the financial end of things, has significance. So that all the Nevi'im were described as wealthy, and that is learned from, we'll say, the precedent setters. Moshe, Shmuel, Amos, Yonah, 4 prophets, and from them we can extrapolate that all the prophets, as Rabbi Yochanan says, were men of wealth. Moshe, Dichtiv, and the double underlining that you see here is used to highlight these names who serve as the examples. Moshe Dichtiv, by Moshe Rabino, it says, and it's interesting to note, it occurred to me just this moment, that when we're describing Moshe as Ashir here, it's the Gemara's initial source is not that which we saw before, but, and just going on another 2 lines, you will see that which we had said before. So don't be surprised by the seemingly new source. The pasuk says by Moshe Rabbeinu, Lo chamor echad mehem nosasi. Moshe Rabbeinu, referring to the Jewish people, he says, I did not take from them a single donkey. So he's announcing his uprightness and saying that I did not take from them a single donkey. Well, below agra, if he is saying I didn't take for free, meaning I didn't steal from you a single donkey, what's the big deal in saying I didn't steal? Lafuke, to the exclusion of man deshaka below agra, someone who would take without paying. That's not a sign of a high quality individual, just because you did not take things without paying for them. Ela da'afilu be'agra. Moshe Rabbeinu is saying I didn't take from anyone even for pay. And the assumption right now is why didn't I need to buy from anyone a donkey? Because I had everything that I needed. Meaning that I was a man of wealth. The Ran commentary, Elo afilu ba'agro shelo hoya nehene mishel acherim. He didn't derive any benefit from others. The Gemara says, how is that a proof, though, that he was wealthy? Dilmo mishum da'ani have. Maybe he was impoverished, and that's why he didn't buy from any, because he couldn't afford to. Elo min psol lecha. Rather, how do I know that Moshe Rabino was a man of means? Because of what we had said before, from psol lecha, which we learned, psolton yehei shelcha, the chips, the etchings or the chips that resulted from his carving out, the luchos, he kept for himself. Shmuel dichtiv. Where do we see that Shmuel was a man of wealth? The pasuk says, "Hineni anu bi neged Hashem v'neged Mashiachai es shor mi lokachti v'chamor mi lokachti." Shmuel announces to the entire Jewish people, if anyone has anything to, let's say, question me about, to challenge me, let them do so now. Whose ox did I ever take? Whose donkey did I ever take? So, like we saw before, he is announcing that he never took things from people. Now, it doesn't mean he never took things from people. If he's saying, I never took for nothing, I didn't, again, like I suggested before, he's saying, I never stole from anybody. Lafuke man, the shokil bechinam, is he trying to set himself apart from those that do take without paying? Obviously not. That's no great accomplishment. Elo dafilu b'schar. I didn't take from anybody, even in exchange for pay. Again, what's the assumption? Because he was a man of wealth. He didn't need to buy from other people. The Gemara says, Dilma da'oni have. Maybe he was impoverished, and that's why he didn't take from anybody. He didn't pay to acquire things, because he didn't have the means. Elo mehocha. Rather, from the following source, can we see that Shmuel was a man of wealth. It says, Uchuvasoi haramasa kisham beisai. That's the pasuk. V'omar Rava kol mokim shahalach beisai imoi. Wherever he went, he had his own house with him. The Rashi says, beisai imo kli tashmisho v'zeh hoya meirov osher. Wherever he went, he didn't need to be hosted by anybody, because wherever he went, he had his own means of maintenance. So we see that only a man of means, a man of wealth, could be described thusly, that wherever he went, he was able to host himself. In contemporary terms, one might picture someone like that. There, he had apartments, he had flats, he had homes all over the country, so that wherever he went, he was able to host himself and not need to be cared for by others. Once again, a sign of wealth. Omar Rava. Godol ma shenemar b'Shmuel yoser mi shenemar b'Moshe. Greater is that which is said regarding Shmuel than that which is said by Moshe Rabino. Greater, or more praiseworthy, if you will, is that which refers to Shmuel than that which is in reference to Moshe Rabino. Te'ilu b'Moshe Rabino ksiv. Regarding Moshe, it says, Lo chamor echod mehem nosasi. I didn't take anyone's animals, tafilu b'schar, that I didn't pay, as we saw before, that I never took anyone's animals, even for pay. V'ilu gabi Shmuel, afilu b'rotzon lo sachroi. By Shmuel, it says that even if people willingly offered me something, I wouldn't take it from them, even in exchange for money. We're going to go over this point momentarily. Just let's complete the source, dichtiv. The source meaning the pasuk that illustrates this. It says, "Vayomer lo ashaktanu." The vayomru, the people responded. We saw before Shmuel announcing to the people, holding forth, describing himself as someone who never took from the people. And if anyone has anything to say, so let them say it now. And in response, the people said to him, "Vayomru," they said, "Lo ashaktanu." V'lo ratzosenu. The word ratzosenu is associated with the word rotzon, willingly. Now, we have to explain this, and we'll do so through the Meforshim. When we look at the Tosfos, you'll notice the Tosfos on the 6th line of the Tosfos commentary. Dilu b'Moshe ksiv lo chamor echad me'em nosasi ba'al korchayu. I never forced anyone to sell me a donkey. Michlal, we can infer from that, the berotzon sochra, that in exchange for money and willingness on the part of the people, there were situations that Moshe Rabino, seeing that the person was willing, would offer money to the individual and in exchange receive a donkey or an animal. V'shemo lo hoyu roitzim. Maybe the people didn't really want to sell him the animal. Uboishin l'sarev l'haskir, and they were embarrassed to resist. The laskir often means the rental of. Could very well mean the payment for. So, as far as the practice of Moshe Rabbeinu, what we are revealing is that Moshe Rabbeinu never forced a sale of an animal, but if it wasn't a forced sale, he might have purchased from the owner of the animal. But that itself contains an element of problem to it, and that is that yes, the owner was selling the animal without being forced, but he was dealing with Moshe Rabbeinu. Maybe he really didn't want to sell, but out of embarrassment he went ahead and sold. V'ilu b'Shmuel ksiv ratzoisi mashma lo bikashti lischor mimenu v'afilu b'ritzui, that even through overt willingness, I never hired or I never bought anything from the population, indicating that even a situation where a person would be ill at ease never arose in the case of Shmuel. Very simply, he never took anything under any circumstances, even though we're talking about for pay. Never never took things from people, even for pay, even under the most overtly willing circumstances. And as the Ran says, afilu b'rotzon dezinin misratzu, there are many times people might agree to a sale mishum kisuf, out of embarrassment. V'lo nicholu, it's not something that they're comfortable avoiding. So Shmuel went the extra mile and never had people in that position where they might have been embarrassed to resist. The Gamora continues. Amos dechtiv, the prophet Amos was a man of wealth. Vayan Amos vayomer lo el Amatzia. The prophet Amos said to the king Amatzia, Lo novi onochi v'lo ben novi onochi. I'm not a prophet, I'm not the son of a prophet. Ki boker onochi uboiles shikmim. And in order to appreciate this, Kedemetargem Rav Yosef, as Rav Yosef explains in Aramaic, Ari Mori Gisi Ano. I am the owner of flocks of sheep. V'shikmin li b'shvelta. Shikmin is a type of tree, so a valuable tree, and I own these trees, maybe groves of trees in Shvelta, a certain region of the country. So a man who commands herds of animals, or flocks and herds of animals, and groves of trees, is a man of wealth. Yoina dichtiv, regarding the prophet Yonah. Yonah is famous in the story of, we'll say, Jonah and the whale. That prophet was a man of wealth. Dichtiv, vayitain schora vayered ba. Yonah, if you're familiar with the story of Yonah, he tried to, we'll say, escape or leave Eretz Yisrael, and he went on a boat, and it says that he paid money and then descended upon the boat. The HaRav Yehonasan Berger, what he in effect did was he bought the boat. He didn't just pay for a ticket to be a passenger on the boat, but he bought the entire boat. The the cost of a boat is 4,000 golden dinar. Well, if Yonah could whip out of his pocket 4,000 golden dinar, he was a man of wealth. The HaRav Yehonasan. Here is something that each one of us who are students of Torah should take great comfort in. Moshe Rabino, the foremost pillar of Torah study, was someone that initially in his learning he would learn and forget. And I tend to think that it's not a one-time learning effort, but he would go over and would forget. Until it was given to him to remember, but as a gift from the Almighty. Shenemar, Vayitain el Moshe kechaloisi l'daber itoi. Vayitain is a lashon maton, is an expression indicating a gift. There is a lot to talk about on this topic, and we're not going to develop it in the context of our Gamora markings, Daf Yomi shiurim, but just maybe one or 2 points for the sake of strengthening each one of us in our Torah learning efforts. Everyone should be aware that the ability to retain, to remember Torah learning necessitates divine intervention. The foremost source on this topic, which I recommend looking up, is a Gamora in Maseches Megillah Davov Amud Beis, where the Gamora says Lukume Girsa Siata Tishmayahi, that in order to Lukume Girsa, to maintain, to remember Torah learning, you need heavenly assistance, Siata Dishmaya. And that's what you see over here concerning the greatest of our people. And why is this so important? Because there are many people that study Torah, especially amongst younger people, that study Torah, and as time goes on, they feel that they don't remember. Exactly how to define memory, that is in of itself worthy of a long discussion. But be that as it may, people think they don't remember, when in fact they really do. But as I say, let's leave that aside. The mere preoccupation with their feeling that they don't retain, which is very discouraging and leading people to reduce or cease their Torah study, is very, very unfortunate. Torah study is to be done, as the Gemara says in Maseches Avodah Zarah Daf Yutes, Le'olam ligmar inish afal gav de mishkach, even if he forgets. You keep on learning and hope and pray, give tzedakah, as the Gemara in Maseches Avodah Zarah Daf Ches suggests, in order to remember. You need to pray for that. And once again, we see the greatest of our people would learn and forget until the Almighty decided, I'm giving you the Torah retention as a gift. And Mirz Hashem, each one of us should merit such an achievement. The Mishnah. before we continue with the Mishnah, we glance at the side. We have a topic heading, the Nosei, Hamadir Hano Mechavero, a person who, through a vow, prevents his friend from deriving benefit. Ma'u Lozun Es Ishto Ubonov. Can the Madir support the Mudar's wife, sons, children, Behemoisov, his animals, Haturim, Hatmeim, the kosher variety animals, the unkosher variety animals? The Mishnah. The background, once again, is this the example that we've been studying from the beginning of the Perek. A Mudar Hano, V'zon es ishto v'ezbonov. He is able to, and it would not be the violation of a vow if he supports the subject of the vow's wife and his children. Afalpi shehu chayov b'mezonosan. Even though he, the subject of the vow himself, is obligated to support his own wife. The Rosh points out that the chayav is going on the wife. The Ran commentary, Vizon es ishtav es bonov, afilu kirabonon asya. This is not only in accordance with Chonon that said that it's permitted to support the Mudar's wife, but even according to the Rabbanon that had argued with Chonon, this particular Mishnah is, we'll say, appropriate, or is in accordance with them. So the Ran goes on. The betoras mitzvah askina v'lo betoras piron shel baal shechayv mezonaseihem. Here the Mishnah is looking at things from the mitzvah angle and not from the financial payment angle of things. V'afagav dahamudar mishani, even though the subject of the vow benefits, she'eino tzorach loseis lahem mezonos, he now isn't going to have to pay for their upkeep. Hahi hanod memelahi. That's pleasure, but we'll call it automatic. It's residual pleasure as opposed to direct pleasure. The Rashi comments, "V'zon es ishtav es bonav shel mudar afalpi shehamudar chayav b'mezonosan." Even though the Mudar himself is obligated to support his wife, Kevon de lav liftumi avidon, since the feeding of his wife is not to fatten her up, as would be the case with animals, v'dai lohen v'mai shu mefarnason, and what this man is giving them, what the Madir is giving them, is enough for their subsistence. Lav hanom ruba ovidle. It's not considered a large amount of pleasure. The Tosfos adds another detail that is of benefit when discussing the issue of Chonon and the Rabbanon. V'zones ishto uvonav, the Tosfos says, if you say that this Mishnah is in accordance with Chonon, with the opinion of Chonon, then this is smooth. The idea of paying someone else's debts is not direct giving of benefit, but rather it's the prevention of damage, literally the chasing away of a lion. And we can say that this Mishnah conforms to the Rabbanon as well. The Mayri Hacha Mimezonis Yuseros, the Ein Nifra Mibaila. Here we're talking about extra food beyond the basic obligation, and this person is not going to be collecting from the husband. The chipligi rabbanon hainu b'mefarnes stam. The machlokas chonon and the rabbanon is with regard to, can a madir hanome chavero support the mudar's wife in her basic necessities? There chonon says yes, and the rabbanon say no. Afal pi shelo pirish l'shem halva. Mikol mokum l'shem matana lo yohiv. V'havi l'rabonon kemo yerid l'sei chaveru shelo b'shus. And Tosfos goes on with a more involved commentary, which we will leave aside for right now. The Mishnah goes on. V'lo yozun es behemto. The Tanakama says that the madir shall not support the feed the animals of the mudar, bein tmea, bein Torah, whether they be unkosher variety animals or kosher variety animals. The allusion was made before to the idea of fattening them up. Feeding animals is in effect with the intention of fattening them up. That would be a source of direct pleasure to the mudar, which would be a violation of the vow. Rebbe Lezer, the Mishnah goes on, Rebbe Lezer Omer, zon es hatmea v'eino zon es hatahira. Rebbe Lezer makes a distinction. The madir, the initiator of the vow, can support the subject's unkosher variety animals, but not their kosher variety animals. Amru lo, the Rabbanan said to Rebbe Lezer, ma bein tamei Torah. What's the difference between an unkosher and kosher variety animal with regard to the vow? Omar luhu, Rebbe Lezer answers, Shatura nafsho l'shamayim v'gufo shelo. The kosher variety animal is described as its spirit is it belongs to the heaven, but its body belongs to him, to the owner, in this case the mudar. Tamea, the unkosher variety animal, which Rebbe Lezer says the madir is allowed to support, nafsha, we're at the top of Amud Beis, nafsha v'gufa lashamayim. The spirit and the body belong to heaven, which is maybe a poetic way of saying it's not fit for eating. Animals that are fit for eating, the feeding of those animals is with the intent of fattening them up for their meat value. And that was, as we described before, that would be direct pleasure given to the mudar, which is a violation of the vow. Unkosher variety animals, they're used for work purposes. Their being fattened up is not of significance for their performance of work. There's a commentary in the Tosfos at the bottom of Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. We have a little star. These terms, nafsha and gufa, to heaven, she'ena yechil lehenis ela ba'oid nafsha ba. It's another way of saying that your benefit from the animal is only while it's alive. Hilkoch lav hanohi. Therefore, the feeding of it, the fattening up of it, is not a source of pleasure for its owner, the mudar. Avol tahira nafsha l'shamayim klomar afal pi nafsha l'shamayim gufa shelo l'shchita. Even though its spirit is heavenly ordained, an animal while it's alive is something you're not allowed to eat. You have to slaughter it in order to eat it. While it's alive, it's called aver min achai. It's something prohibited. So that as long as it's alive, as long as its nefesh, its life breath is in it, so you don't have access to it in terms of eating it. But gufa, once you slaughter it and you're left with just the body, in the case of a kosher variety animal, that is something that you can benefit from. And in the case of a madir and a mudar, where a vow was made, so the feeding of that kosher variety animal would be a violation of the vow. You're giving him direct benefit in the increased mass of the animal with regard to its meat value. The Mishnah continues, Amru lo, the Rabbanan who argue with Rebbe Lezer, said back to him, even when it comes to unkosher variety animals, imagine horses and swine, they can be described in the same way. She'im yirtzeh harehu mochra li'ovdei kechavim o machilo leklavim. He can sell his horses to non-Jews, and they can benefit from the meat aspect, the meat value of the animal, or a fattened animal would represent more meat for his dogs. So they don't see a distinction between the Tamea and the Tahora, as Rabbi Ozer had seen. The Gemara, Amar of Yitzchak bar Hananya, Amar of Huna, Hamudar hano mechavero, muter lahasi loy bito. If one prevented the other from deriving benefit, he nevertheless is allowed to marry off his daughter to the other fellow. You'll notice, and we had this in a previous shiur, that we used pronouns, and those who are familiar with our Gamora markings, Daf Yomi shurim, and our, let's say, principles of learning, we try to avoid pronouns at all costs. Pronouns are a very, very confusing aspect of learning Gemara. In this case, though, in order for the Gamora to have a flexibility in presenting different possibilities, we had to present it with the pronouns as we did. On the side of the Gemara, you'll see the nosei, the topic heading Din Rav Huna, Rav Huna's law, Hamudar hano mechaver muter lahasio as bito. One who forbade his fellow from benefiting from him, nevertheless, the daughter can be married off. Under the mivneh heading, a triangle appears, and the triangles in the Gemara represent shlavim levar nichse mi asurin al mi. The property of whom is prohibited upon whom. All we see is that Rav Huna says that in a mudar hano mechaver situation, one's daughter can be married to the other party. So the Gemara continues. Havi bo Rabizira b'mayaskin. Havi is an expression meaning a question is raised. Rabizira raises the question, b'mayaskin, what are the circumstances? What are we talking about? Ilemo b'shenichse avi kalo asurin al hachosan, that the property of the bride's father is prohibited upon the groom. So the madir is the father of the bride. And what is Rav Huna then saying? That the father of the bride, even though he prevents the groom from benefiting from the father of the bride's properties, he, the father of the bride, can nevertheless marry off his daughter to this chosan who was, as we said, prevented from benefiting from the avi hakala. But how could that be? Hare moiser loy shivcha leshamsho. A man who gives over his daughter, and we might mention just in parenthetically that when we speak about a man giving over daughter, we're inevitably referring to a daughter who is a minor, and that one of the rights a father has from the Torah is to marry off his daughter as long as she is under his jurisdiction, and as long as, when we say jurisdiction, that's defined by her age up till 12 and a half. So if we're talking about if we're going to suggest that the circumstances behind Rav Huna's statement are that the nichse avi hakal are also on the chosan, how in the world could that man give over his daughter to this groom? He's giving over the equivalent of a maid servant. This might not sound politically correct to some, we'll say, sensitive ears, but here we're going to try to stick close to the Gamora translation. There is a Mishnah in Ksubis that speaks about obligations that a woman has toward her husband. If you haven't learned Maseches Ksubis, then you are not aware of the fact that a man has a tremendous amount of obligation toward his wife. But looking at things from the perspective of the wife, she has obligations to fulfill for her husband. So in that context, she's referred to as a shivcha, as a maid servant to serve her husband. So how in the world could the father of the kala, who says that he doesn't want the chassan to benefit, how can he give over his daughter to the chassan? Ela kishenichse chassan asurin al avi kala. So let's try this out. The circumstances are that the chassan's properties are prohibited to the father of the bride. Okay, so the groom's possessions are prohibited to the father of the bride. And then Rav Huna is telling me that the woman, the girl, can be married off all the same to the chassan. Now, you'll ask yourself, is there any chiddush in that? Is that not obvious? And as the Gemara says, Gedola mizu amru, there is even a bigger chiddush that is stated in the Mishnah, making this a statement of Rav Huna, if you assume these circumstances, anticlimactic. What does it say? If you have someone that is madir hano mechavero, our Mishnah said that the madir, the one who initiates the vow, zones ishto vezbonov, v'afapi shehu chayav b'mezor Yehonasan. Here you have a madir giving legitimately property in the direction of the mudar, namely to the mudar's wife and children, even though the mudar himself is obligated to support his wife. The Mishnah allows even that, where the madir is giving to in the direction of the mudar. V'ad amris, and you, Rav Huna, would be telling me muter lahasi loi bito, where the mudar, the one who is prevented from getting pleasure, is giving to the madir. The one who's prevented from receiving pleasure, he is giving to the initiator of the vow. That's terribly obvious. Once again, if a person who initiates the vow is able to give to the subject of the vow, namely to his wife or his children, and that's allowed, so all the more understandable is where the mudar, the subject of the vow, is giving something to the madir. It's obvious that would be allowed. There is a comment in the Ran that we'll look at together. Toward the end of the narrow lines of the Ran commentary, Gedola mizu amru zones ishto vezbonov v'yad amris muter lahasi lo bito klomar imhu yochol lo zunes bito ba'oido birshuso. If the madir is able to support the daughter of the mudar when she's in the mudar's domain, shu chayav b'mezor, where the father of the girl is expected to support his daughter, kol sheken sheyuchal lozun osa achar shenos'a shenischayav b'mezonos ishto umay komashmal Rav Huna. The Gamora continues, li'oilom b'shenichse avi kalo asurin ala chasan. We're going to go back to that scenario, namely where the property of the father of the bride, his possessions are prohibited upon the chasan. And did we not say that how in the world could we allow that? Is it not so that the father of the bride is giving a maidservant in the form of his daughter to the chasan? How can we allow that? Ubebito bogeres umidaita. It's in fact dealing with an adult daughter. And her marriage to the chasan is something that she's doing on her own volition. So that it's not a violation of the vow. It's not that the father of the girl who is the madir is giving over his daughter. She's no longer in the father's domain to be given over. What about the fact that she's marrying the Mudar, that's Midaita. The Ran elaborates on the first wide line. It's not the father giving to the Mudar, the girl, but rather on her own volition. Umidaita. Taima kuyov lemilse klomar mishum hachi shori. It's because of this that we're allowing it. Midaitahi. The word midaita is added in the Gemara as an explanation. The kevon shebogro shuv ein lo v'yorushus. But once she becomes an adult, a bogeres that's over 12 and a half, the father has no longer any control over her. The Gamora continues. Tanyo nami hachi. The following source serves as support, and Rashi, he says, Tanya meochi dahano mu'etes muter. So we're dealing with a small level, a low level, a minor level of pleasure that is allowed. That's not considered a violation of the vow. The Gemara continues with the source, Hamudur hano mechavero osur lahasilo bito. If A prevents B from getting benefit from A's property, so A cannot marry off his daughter to B. Avol masio bito bogeres umidaito. However, if you're dealing with an adult daughter, then she can be married to the Mudar. Omer Yankiv Hamadir Benoi L'Talmud Torah. And regarding this phrase, there are, I would say, opposite commentaries that you find in Rashi and the Ran. So a father imposed a vow concerning his son regarding Torah. We'll have to look shortly at the commentaries that we just mentioned in order to appreciate this. But a vow was imposed by father regarding son. Mutter l'malois loy chovis shel mayim. It's mutter for him. Now, again, we're going to use a pronoun, and this is not a result of the Gamora, but rather of the Rashi versus the Ran. So it says that even though a vow was imposed, it is allowed for him to fill up a vessel of water for him, udahadlik lo es haner, and to light a candle for him, Rabizira gomer litzloi sloidag cotton, to roast a small fish. As promised, we look at the Rashi commentary. Hamadir es benoi mina chosav imlo yilmoi Torah. A father banned his son through a vow from benefiting from the father's property if he doesn't learn Torah. So you have a father that's very insistent on his son studying Torah. Muter ha'av l'malois v'chulei. It is allowed for the father to fill up for the son. Shanom rubo nodar himenu v'lo hanom muetis. What the father was prohibiting through a vow was a large amount of hana. But a small amount of hana, a small amount of pleasure, that was never part of the vow. V'zu hanom muetisi, the filled vessel with water, the lighting of the candle. These are small forms of pleasure. They weren't included in the vow. So even though the father does not want the son to benefit from him unless he learns Torah, doing these small things, my assumption is from Rashi, even if the son isn't arduous in his pursuit of Torah, these would not constitute a violation of the vow. Now we glance at the Ran commentary. Third line under the Gemara text, Hamadir benol Talmud Torah, ha'av hadiroi shelo yehene oviv mimenu, kedei shelo yizbatel mitalmud Torah. Here, the father took upon himself a vow not to benefit from the son, so as not to cause the son bittul Torah. Bittul Torah is a situation where a person departs from the study of Torah. So that here you have a father that doesn't want to get benefit from his son because that would cause the son to be bittul mevatel Torah. The Ran continues, Muter haben l'maloi slav v'chovis shelmayim l'hadlik lo'yasaner. Here the father, though he had imposed upon himself the pleasure restriction, the son nevertheless can fill for the father a vessel of water, light a candle, it's to be assumed that when it comes to these minor types of benefit, the lekabu bittul limud Torah, for a person who is, let's say, studying Torah, to get up and light a candle for someone else, that does not constitute the voidance of Torah study. So that was lo adre, that was never part of the original vow, the original self-imposed deprivation that the father took upon himself. The Gemara continues. Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Hamudar hano mechavero, someone who imposed a prohibition of benefit through a vow, muter lahashkoisoi kois shel shalom. He nevertheless, if let's say A said to B, Mr. B, I don't want you to benefit from me. A nevertheless can fill a cup of water, or a kois shel shalom, the cup of peace. What is meant by the cup of peace? So we have two explanations. Hocha targimu kois shel beis ha'ovel. It's a reference to the cup that's drunk in the house of mourning. And the cups that are drunk in the house of mourning is something that the Gamora in Maseches Ksubis elaborates on that a little bit more. Regarding the topic, the Rosh expounds on that a bit more. In B'Marova Amri, Kois Shel Beis HaMerchatz. Marova means in Eretz Yisrael, Kois Shel Shalom is the Kois Shel Beis HaMerchatz, the cup of the bathhouse. And the Rosh explains that after a person goes into a bathhouse, it is healthful for him to consume heated water. He should drink a hot cup of water. Otherwise, he doesn't really derive benefit from the bathhouse. So, Kois Shel Shalom, according to the Marova Pshat, is this Kois Shel Beis HaMerchatz. So that even though someone, A, was Madir Hanoah from B, A can nevertheless still present B with a cup of hot water after a bathhouse experience. V'lo yozun es behemtoi v'chulei. Tanya Yeshua ish Ozer Omer. Yeshua ish Uzzah. That's an opinion. It's the name of someone. Says Zon avoda v'shivchoisav haknanim v'lo yozun es behemto bein tamea bein tahora. That in a madir hano mechavero situation, so the madir is allowed to offer food, support to the mudar's human slaves and bondmaids, the Gentile slaves and bondmaids. However, the madir cannot feed the mudar's animals, whether they be unkosher variety or kosher variety. My taima, what is the basis of this distinction? Answer: Avoda v'shivchoisav aknanim leman charusa avidan. Slaves and bondmaids, their purpose is leman charusa, for work, not for being fattened up. So the food that's given to them is not, let's say, translated into a desired increased body mass, and therefore the amount of pleasure that the mudar would be getting from the madir is minimum. Behema liftuma avido. However, when you're dealing with an animal, so that its very existence is for being fattened up, and therefore feeding the man's animals is considered of a more significant and direct pleasure, and hence that would be prohibited in the case of a mudar hanoah. With that, we conclude our shiur for today.